and welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily and I hope y'all are doing awesome. Today we're continuing my Pride Month video series on LGBTQIA+ identities. We're starting to wind down the series now with our last 4 videos. So far, we've discussed sexual orientations and gender identities, but there's one last thing to cover before the month is over. Today, we'll begin talking about romantic orientations, and we will finish the video series talking about this topic. You may remember from my other videos that a person's sexual orientation describes who, if anyone, a person is sexually attracted to. It describes the gender or genders, if any, of the people that a person experiences sexual attraction towards. Sexual orientation is who you'd want to have sex with, but sex and romantic relationships aren't the same thing, right? The things you look for in a sex partner, including their gender, aren't always the same things you look for in a romantic partner. Romantic orientation describes who a person is romantically attracted to, meaning who, if anyone, a person desires to have a romantic relationship or fall in love with. Romantic orientation describes the gender or genders, if any, that a person typically desires a romantic relationship with. It describes who people experience romantic attraction or the desire for an intimate and emotional relationship towards. Just because someone is romantically attracted to someone does not mean that they want to have sex with them. Similarly, just because a person is sexually attracted to someone doesn't mean that they want to have a romantic relationship with them. A person's romantic orientation may be the same as their sexual orientation, or it may be different. Romantic orientation is a distinction that is particularly important to people on the asexuality spectrum. Because they don't experience sexual attraction, or they experience limited sexual attraction, but they may still desire romantic relationships with people, romantic orientation is a helpful tool to help aspec folks denote the gender or genders, if any, of people they want to have romantic relationships with. Romantic orientations aren't just for asexual people, though. Everyone has a romantic orientation. Remember that being heterosexual means you're sexually attracted to people of the opposite or of a different gender than your own. Similarly, being heteroromantic means that you're romantically attracted to people who are of the opposite or of a different gender than your own. So a man who wants to have a romantic relationship with a woman and a woman who wants to have a romantic relationship with a man could both be considered heteroromantic. Just because a person is heteroromantic does not mean they're heterosexual, though they certainly can be both. A person can want to have a romantic relationship or primarily fall in love with people who are of the opposite gender, but still experience sexual attraction towards people of the same gender, of multiple genders, of all genders, or towards no one at all. I'll give you a couple examples to help explain. For example, a person can be asexual and heteroromantic, meaning they don't experience sexual attraction, but they want to have a romantic partnership with someone of the opposite gender. Or maybe someone is pansexual and heteroromantic, meaning they experience sexual attraction to people regardless of their gender, but they only want a romantic relationship with someone of the opposite gender. Okay, so heteroromantic describes people who experience romantic feelings towards people of the opposite or of a different gender. But what if a person desires romantic relationships with people of the same gender as the self? There's a category for that too. Remember that homosexual describes people who experience sexual attraction to people of the same gender as themselves. Similarly, homoromantic describes people who experience romantic attraction, or the desire for a romantic partnership, with people who are of the same sex. A person can be homosexual and homoromantic, meaning they desire both sexual and romantic relationships with people of the same sex. Or they can be homoromantic and a different sexual orientation. For example, a person can be bisexual and homoromantic, meaning they experience sexual attraction to 2 or more genders, but they only desire a romantic relationship with someone as the same gender as themselves. Romantic orientation simply describes a person's pattern of romantic attraction, regardless of their sexual orientation. No matter how a person identifies sexually, the romantic orientation describes who they experience romantic attraction to, who they want to have a romantic relationship with. Sexual and romantic orientation may be the same, or they may not be. Just like with sexual orientation, romantic orientation says nothing about a person's behavior. It simply describes a person's experience with romantic attraction. Note that if a person is cisgender, heterosexual, and heteroromantic, they're not LGBT+. They're just cis and straight, which is a perfectly good way to be. But change just one of these identities, including romantic orientation, to an LGBT+ identity, and the person is no longer just cis and straight. The LGBT+ community includes all people who are not cisgender, heterosexual, and heteroromantic. Today, we discussed what it means to be heteroromantic and homoromantic, and in the coming days, we'll explore other romantic orientations. I hope that this video was helpful to you and that you learned something about, I think, a topic that a lot of people don't know very much about. Check out the description box down below for my sources and for other resources if you're interested in learning more. You'll also find resources for finding LGBT+ affirmative therapists and for crisis and suicide hotlines down below. If you are considering suicide, please do call a crisis or suicide hotline or call 911. You are worth it, and suicide is never the answer. Thank you all for watching this video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye-bye!